So I've had a bit of a crisis in the last couple days, and okay, it's not bad, like, it's something I would not be talking about on video, but it's something I've been thinking about lately, and for some of you that might remember, I've talked quite a bit about PlayStation 2 games, like, I've talked about, like, some of my personal favorite games that are turning 20 this year, and other games as well that are, like, just absolute fan favorites of mine. So, you could tell by the fact that I just love PlayStation 2. It's the system I grew up on way before, like, Nintendo and Xbox. And hell, I know it's not much, but on my PS4, I have the Dynamic Legacy theme of, just the PlayStation 2 screen and all that stuff. You could tell I'm just a fanatic for PlayStation 2. You could ask anybody that knows me well enough, and they'd be like, oh yeah, he loves the PlayStation 2. But I've lately been coming down to the fact of, like, I wanted to make a top 10 video-ish of, like, my favorite PlayStation 2 games of all time. However, I've come to that point where it's like, I'm able to manage, like, the bottom 5, but then when it comes to the next 5, it's so tough. It's ridiculously tough to figure out because it's like, there are 4 games that I would consider being my top 4 picks. Absolutely being my top 4 picks. But they're all so good because I've played them so much and I love them all about equally. They are all... Okay, just the problem is, I can't put these games in exact position, so I'm gonna kind of go down them how I feel, like, one by one. And note, I should mention, this is only gonna be 4. This is gonna be 4 out of 5, like, top 5 games that I love for PlayStation 2. Why? Because there is a unanimous first place for me when it comes to PlayStation 2 games. There is a unanimous that none of these games reach that level, but again, all these games almost hit that first place, and I can't put them all in second place. There's no way I could. So, without further ado, I want to get into this list. I want to just have, like, I want to rant about these games, basically. Talk about why I love these games so much, what I don't like about these games, and reasons why, they're kind of here, and why I absolutely love them the most out of, like, most other PS2 games. So, to go down the list first off, we start with Resident Evil 4. Most Resident Evil fans, we should all know this game. We should have all played this game one time or another. This game was my introduction into the Resident Evil franchise back in, like, 2016, 2017. And I didn't exactly get into it. And this is the story for most games I got into back in that time. Because I had just gotten back into PlayStation 2 games, and I wanted to try out more. I wanted to try stuff that I never ever did before as a kid. And Resident Evil 4 was that game where it's just like, I had never played a Resident Evil game before. I didn't grow up playing Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, or even, like, just the other older Resident Evil games. I just didn't. Out of just pure uninterest for the series. Also because I was a bit of a weenie hut junior, and just very scared of horror games in general, and horror in general as well. And first time around playing this game, yeah, it scared me. It scared the living crap out of me with the first section. Okay, we all know him. You know him. I know him. Everybody and their mothers know it. But the first boss you encounter, the man with the chainsaw, just like the bagman with the chainsaw in the village, literally scared the absolute crap out of me. Because I did not know what to do. I didn't know how to fight him. I didn't even know how to get past all, like, the mobs of enemies and all that stuff just charging in at you. I didn't know how to do that at first. I was just a wee lad that didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was so scared, so I dropped the game for a while. I came back a few months later, though, after, like, trying out some other games, and I just remember going on an entire fest of just playing Resident Evil 4, from basically the beginning all the way up to the end. And let me tell you, at that first time, that was an experience, like, unlike many others. I can't even tell you what my time is on that game, like, first playthrough, but I could bet it was around, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe 16, 18 hours, perhaps, of constant saves and constant retries and just grinding for gold and getting upgrades and fighting bosses and getting past sections that are absolutely ridiculous, even in today's standards. But that was just the good time. That was the satisfying time for me, just experiencing Resident Evil 4 for the first time. It was just nonstop fun, and I just kept getting better with subsequent playthroughs. It kept getting better. I started understanding sections a lot better. I started figuring out bosses a lot better, even though they were a load of bullshit. And there, and just even okay. The big thing for me with Resident Evil 4 was just like the amount of resource management you had to do in that game. And I know that wasn't a thing until like, I don't know, Resident Evil 7 or 8 or whatever, but resource managing in that game, absolutely fun. That was a fun time just managing like ammunition and weapon types and like healing resources and even miscellaneous stuff, you know, just people just non-stop throwing in eggs, like just an entire briefcase full of eggs. And even fishers as well, if you go fishing and all that stuff, if you don't die, that is. But resource management was a fun thing for me in Resident Evil 4, because it's like, I had to figure out, okay, I need room for pistol ammo, I need room for grenades. Grenades were a big thing as well. And I also need the room for, I swear to God, just like all the different weapons for just, you know, rifles and shotguns and pistols and all that stuff. The Red 9 was absolutely my favorite pistol in the lineup of handguns in the game. And shotguns, they were quite fun as well, but ammunition was hard to come by with them, especially early game, and even late game, I think, in my opinion. Grenades were a must-have. Grenades were definitely a must-have for, like, so many playthroughs, because you had to use them just, like, you know, get some gold, maybe hunt down some birds so you can get gold and jewels and all that stuff. And even just, like, and even mods of enemies as well. It's just, like, you need to save that ammunition, but you gotta use that grenade quite well. And be it if it was an incendiary grenade, a frag grenade, or even a flashbang grenade. Yeah, just... You had to manage all this stuff, which was quite fun, and it just really led into the challenge and even frustration that I had for this game as well. Where it's just like, you know, you are one man pitted up against basically an entire cult nation. And you have to just chug your way through it, making sure you have the ammo and explosives and resources just to get out alive. And it leads into some very, very fun sections. Absolutely fun sections of the game. But that fun also leads into frustration, because sometimes you can be pitted to a corner if you're not careful. If you don't have the ammo to get through a certain section or a certain room, like, what are you going to do about it? You're going to have to go back and maybe farm some ammunition, maybe buy some upgrades perhaps, if you have the money, that is. And I have had that many times. I had that so many times. The worst example was when you got to the castle with Leon and Ashley, and you're just in that big middle section, and there's just like, there's the dudes with the shields and just the, you know, the chain spike balls, and just like, the best thing I could do was just get into a small room and just snipe them down one by one, but I was so low on ammo, it basically got to a point they were all barraging me at once, and they were capturing Ashley. I'm just like, well, I guess I'll die. Because you just have no way. Because you just don't know how many more are coming. I don't even know if enemies exactly, like, spawn back, like they respawn after a certain amount of time or not. Either way, it's just like, that was a section that I could never, ever get through. And maybe I should go back and do that again, just to test it out. But no, there's just times like that where it's just, you have to play it smart with this game. It really is. And honestly, speaking of Ashley, this is just my biggest gripe with the entire game. It is absolutely the biggest gripe everybody has in their moms, but I will say just Ashley for me, I liked her as a character, but I did not like her gameplay-wise. The only times I actually liked her is when she could actually hide in, like, you know, like a dumpster or like a doorway or something, you know? That was the only good times she was useful. That she was out of sight and nobody could get her. Other than that, it's just, this is the reason why everybody hates escort missions, and it's why I don't really care for them, because of this. Because you basically turned a gimmick into like 80% of the game. The other 20% is basically you, as Leon, just fighting your way through. But when that percentage is over, you're back to babysitting Ashley. And it's not fun. And it's not even fun playing as Ashley, because you don't get any weapons. You get to, like, maybe shrug and fight your way a little bit through, like, that section where you have to, like, solve the puzzle and all that. And if I remember right, you're able to throw grenades as well, if you're able to get any grenades. But, again, I don't like Ashley. I really don't. And especially just, it's a funny use gimmick that I had with her. Wait, follow me. Wait, follow me. Wait, follow me. It's just funny. The jokes make themselves, alright? But Ashley was my biggest gripe for all my playthroughs with this game. And it's probably the reason why it's my lowest out of these 4 games, just because of that 80% with Ashley. But I won't let it entirely just ripen it. Just like, just go down in flames. No, because this game is absolutely amazing. You can be stuck on this game for so many hours. And even then, there are even, like, after game, like, after credit stuff that you could do. Like, you could just go back and replay the whole game all over again and be a mafia boss, or be a raccoon police department officer, or even have, like, a ray gun that shoots multi-targeted stuff and all. It's fun stuff that you just get to unlock this stuff. And besides that, you get extra modes as well. You get, like, you get Ada Wong's story, you get, like, her side of the story, what she's doing in Resident Evil 4, and you even get the mercenaries. I think that was the first time the mercenaries, like, became a thing in Resident Evil. And there's other modes as well. I don't remember all of them, but it's like, you get different kinds of, like, game modes that you just get to play after the base game. And it just keeps coming. And again, it's just the idea where it's just like, I didn't focus more of my time on, like, the extra game modes, because I wanted to get back into the main game. I wanted to explore more sections. I wanted to, like, upgrade different weapons. I wanted to try out different weapons. And I wanted to even try out some different tactics as well when trying to dispose, like, mobs of enemies. And even bosses as well, which, let me be quite honest, bosses range from being, like, fairly interesting to being downright just disgustingly bullshit. The biggest example I could give, and this isn't even a boss fight, but I count it as one, it's that first encounter you get with, like, Krauser, I believe, like, Leon's, like, old comrade from, like, the military or something, whatever, but that first encounter you have with Krauser, like, halfway through the game, and it is nothing but a 2-minute long, like, freaking, what is it called again? Like, CQC, God, what is it called again? I'm trying to think it, I'm sorry, because it's like, I'm looking back at that, I'm thinking about it, and it's so bad. God, sorry, I am just blanking so hard. But you all know what I mean. Basically, it's a thing that Asura's Wrath, it's just the one gimmick Asura's Wrath had. Button timing, yeah, just like button timing and all that stuff, you just had to be so quick, and you had to be perfect with each, like, button interaction, that it was just so bad. And when you died, you just had to go back again and again. You had to start it all over. And I just remember one time I was replaying, and I, like, died 20 times in that CQC section. It really was just that bad. It was just, oh my god. It was just so bad. Yeah, just like button prompts, honestly. And it was like quick time events. The quick time events in this game, and especially in this first encounter with Krauser, was so bad. Because you could be literally at the last, like, the last quick time event, and you could mess it up. Like, you can't mess it up. They won't give you a second chance. You mess that up one time, you're dead. And I think, to be quite frank, that's also a reason why Resident Evil 4 is probably lower for me compared to the other games, because it's like, the quick time events in this game are so bad. They could sometimes mess you up. They really can. But with this in particular, unless you have a perfect memory, unless you have, like, quick reflexes, unlike me, you're gonna be stuck on this part for a long-ass time. For an absolute long-ass time. And then, of course, I'm not gonna let Krauser off that easily. Second fight was also horseshit as well. You better be packing some grenades, at least. At least to just, like, knock him off. Or even just in general, just, be ready just to be doing more quick time events. it's Krauser in general was very annoying and frustrating, and I don't miss him at all, and I would not enjoy fighting him again in another replay. Otherwise, just bosses, like I said, they range from being like fairly challenging to being frustratingly annoying, and Krauser is definitely that part where you're just like, your nerves are gonna get to ya. So yeah. God. I'm trying to think of anything else, like, for Resident Evil 4-wise. I guess if I wanted to end it off on a note, Resident Evil 4 is that game that, like I said, was my introduction into the franchise. And as much as I have not really dived in into, like, you know, this huge-ass series that has had multiple, like, ups and downs, that have had, like, monumental successes and absolute downflops of games, Resident Evil 4 is still that game that I understand why it gets all the criticism, but also praise. Because I've just played this game nonstop, and it's just... I will also say, this game, many people want a remake for this game. I don't want one. I don't want a remake for Resident Evil 4. I really don't. Like, yeah, you can make it pretty and all that stuff, and maybe, just maybe, you can make the world a little bigger, but I don't really want it. I'm fine with Resident Evil 4 as it is. I really am. And it's a fun adventure over-the-shoulder game. And Leon Kennedy, I forgot to mention characters. I like the characters in this game as well. Like I said, I like Ashley. I even like Ada. Leon absolutely sells it for me this entire game. Just going from, like, first day on the job officer to being a freaking CIA agent. Just, you know, rescuing the president's daughter. Also, Lewis, just... Lewis... I wanted Lewis so badly. I wanted to save Lewis. I wanted Lewis to be at the end of the game, but nah. Sadly not. But again, the characters in this game, they're fun. They're very cool to just, like, be around and all that stuff. And even fight them at times as well. Even just the funny little interactions, like, what is it? Halfway, when you, like, meet up with Lewis again, like, the second time, and you're, like, barricading yourselves in a house. And, like, if you accidentally shoot Lewis, like, a couple times, he'll kill you. He'll kill you in an instant. Like, you can't, like, fight back or anything. I like those kind of interactions. I kind of do. I really do. So, yeah. Resident Evil 4, I'd say, is probably the weakest for me. Because of, like, all the stuff I mentioned. Like, all the stuff I just ranted about. Like, with Ashley and Krauser. And a few other things as well. But, by far, it is an absolute amazing game. I love this game so much. But, let me be fair, it is the lowest because the next game that we do get into has sort of similar issues with Resident Evil 4, but for me, does it much better because I enjoyed my experiences a lot more. And that game is Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Much like Resident Evil 4, Metal Gear Solid 2 was my introduction into the Metal Gear franchise. It was. Before 3, before 1, and, you know, just everything else. Technically, okay, to be fair, Metal Gear Rising was my introduction way before this game, but it was, like, a more, I guess, what's the word? I guess a more traditional Metal Gear Solid game. You know, a mainline game. I guess a mainline game, like, of the mainline 4 games, you know? Or 5 games, whatever. But Metal Gear Solid 2 was that introductory for me. Truthfully. So we'll leave it as that. Anyway. Again, like Resident Evil 4, there's going to be a lot of similarities with this, like, with all these games. But first time I played this game, I didn't know what I was doing. I did not know. I was so frustrated. I could not understand the gameplay. I could not understand the controls. I couldn't even get into the story. Like, the story was so weird for me. And that was very definite when I beat the game the very first time. I wasn't satisfied. I was just downright confused and shocked. I'm like, what? Like, what is this ending? And as much as I spoiled Resident Evil 4, I'm not spoiling MGS2. Y'all can play that because this game is absolutely amazing. But, like, that first time, I'm left like, wait, what? What does this mean? What did this character talk about? Like, what is going on? And then I played it again through a second time. Well, hold on. Before I do that, let me also admit, The one thing that definitely ticked me off with this game, and it still does now, is boss fights. And I mentioned this with Resident Evil 4, but it is very, very much worse in this game for me. Because, like, boss fights like Fat Man and Vamp are just downright some of the most annoying fights ever that I've had to deal in a game. Batman is annoying because sometimes you could just, if you don't keep track of his bombs, that's it, you're screwed, and you don't even get extra time. And Vamp is just, he just pities you. He just like jumps around, he swoops around, he dodges your bullets, he wastes your bullets, he wastes your traps, and he just like kicks you around and knifes you around and traps you and all that. It's annoying. And he is just a tank. He just tanks so many hits. So that was definitely not a good first impression with just both boss fights and also, just the ending, the finale. But then I went back a second time. Like a few months later, I went back a second time to play Sons of Liberty. And this time around, I made it my mission to fully, focus on what's happening around me. Understand what the characters are talking about, get a better feel of the big shell where you're in, and even just, focus on the little details of this game, the details that bring it all together. And even the biggest thing for me, which definitely helped me with both this game and another game of mine, is the Kodak calls. The Kodak calls definitely gave me a better understanding for this world, for these characters, and for this whole entire conflict. A lot better, way more than the first time. And it brought me to really like these characters a lot more, even relate to some of these characters in a sense. It was so much better just understanding this world much better through the lens of characters. Like, understanding these characters, what they are talking about, what they mean by, the reasons behind being here, and why they it's really much more satisfying. And it all came together at the end. It all came together at the end, where I'm just like, you fight Solidus, and then you go through that ending, and you go through that beautiful song, Can't Say Goodbye to Yesterday. That second time around, that second completion, I absolutely adored this game. I absolutely adored it for just almost everything. Still hated boss fights, don't get me wrong. I still hated boss fights. The Metal Gear Ray fight at the end was especially bad. But I had a better understanding of this world, not even playing any other Metal Gear games. Not even. Not playing the first game, not playing the third game, not playing anything else. This was the game that made me give me a good, starter, beginner understanding of the Metal Gear Solid universe. And I was completely satisfied, to the point that I just reference this game so much. I reference it a whole lot in my outside life. When I beat this game the second time back in, late 2017 or late 2018, I just referenced this game so much. I wanted to be these characters. These characters were absolutely cool. There was endless reference to this game for me, and it was so satisfying. And more satisfying than the story itself, but more satisfying than story and characters was, understanding the game a lot more. It really was. And just, let me be real. Like I said, first time I played, hated it. I absolutely did not understand it. I did not like, all the zooming in and zooming out and just all this weird stuff. Second time around, it made more sense. Just managing rations and even managing ammunition for your pistols and assault rifles and sniper rifles and explosives. It made me feel like a tacticianer. Made me feel like I love setting down traps in subsequent playthroughs, like claymores and landmines, and even chucking grenades and flash grenades. They were so much fun. It was so much fun and messing around in the big shell, just just trampling over and all that stuff. Even just hiding away from plain sight, in the box, and even just moving around the big shell in the different places. This was so much fun. It made me really feel like an infiltrator. It really did. And it definitely was fun because it's in situations where I'm I have to go all Rambo style, even those were fun. Even those were fun, even though I ended up most likely dying. I ended up dying the most part going into those, like, alert situations. But again, it's just, there's enough to explore with the big shell, both early game and late game as well. And even then, there's just enough, there's like so many ways you can go around it. You can just get around this big shell. Sometimes you're locked off from it, sometimes you are, because of maybe story progression, or even just like you need a certain item. But again, there's so many ways you can go about the big shell, and I absolutely love it. And Raiden definitely makes this an interesting appearance as well. Like, Raiden makes it much more interesting because it's like, you think he's trying to live up to some big legendary hero like Solid Snake, but no, he's just a pawn. He's just a pawn, and you're just like, you're going through basically a recreation of, what was it called again? Oh god, I have already forgotten the name. I'm blanking on it again. I'm blanking. I forgot the name of it. I forgot the, Outer Haven. Yeah, I guess Outer Haven, basically. From Metal Gear Solid 1, and even Metal Gear 1 and 2. But again, you're on the big shell. But again, it's an experience. It's a recreated experience that is quite satisfying. Once you realize, oh shit, this isn't actually real. This isn't supposed to be an actual mission. Like, not trying to get into the story that much. Because again, this story is both extremely interesting, and I highly recommend you all to check out this game. Even, like, get involved with the story. But at the same time, it's so confusing from a beginner perspective like me that it's like, sometimes there are things that just, they're gonna fly over your head. In this game, there's a lot of themes and there's a lot of story beats that go over your head the first few times. And it did for me. There were some things that I probably didn't pick up on until, like, my 5th or 6th playthrough. Like, oh, this character is related to this character, or this conflict was related to this, and how it came to the big shell. It's just those connections that brings this game all together, and it's so damn well. It's so damn well done. Again, it's just, my biggest complaint is the boss fights. The boss fights are absolutely just, they range from being a slouch of a time to being just downright bullshit. The slouches are definitely like the Vamp and Fat Man fights, and then the absolute bullshit ones are like the Metal Gear Ray fight. Like, that is so annoying to deal with. But again, it's like, there's just no, I can't think of any other negatives about this game. This game is just so much more fun on subsequent playthroughs because I get to experience this just mysterious world story of just all these different characters fighting for a different reason, and finding reasons to, like, live and fight. And all these different reasons, it's just, there's so much to unpack with this story. There really is. And it's just, like, finding this over and over again, and, like, getting into more different details, and exploring the big shell, and doing all these different, like, scenarios, they're so much fun. They're absolutely so much fun that I love this game to a beat. But like I said, there's another game like this. A very, very close game. A game that, you know, took this game as inspiration and basically took it to a whole different new level. And just absolutely blew my mind and my expectations. And that game is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Where do I start with this game? Where do I... I don't know where to start, honestly. Negatives aside, I don't really have that negatives for this game. If anything, I kind of have nitpicks. The biggest nitpick I have is that you get a shotgun in this game, and I absolutely hate that fact. I hate the fact you get a shotgun. I get it, this is like early World War time era and all that stuff, but really, a shotgun in my Metal Gear game? Was there even a shotgun in later games like 4 and 5? I don't even know, but still, I'm glad you can just, it's completely optional for whatever weapons you use, so I refuse, okay. It sounds ironic, coming from somebody that would gladly use a machine gun, but not a shotgun in a Metal Gear Solid game. It's kind of irony for that, but at the same time, I just refuse to use a shotgun because it's so loud and it's so unnecessary for, like, trying to get through certain sections. And even then, I don't even think the shotgun is that good. I tried it a few times on prior playthroughs, and I didn't like it. I just did not like it at all. Anyway, And besides that, bosses can be annoying from time to time because, like, unless you have a good understanding of the boss matchup, like, say, one of the different Cobras, then you're not gonna have a fun time. Or even not even the Cobras, like, maybe Colonel Volgan, or even, what is his name? Ocelot. How could I forget Ocelot? Again, just, it's the bosses can sometimes be a little annoying, but they are fun. They are all unique to one another, and they really make you think. They make you really, really think. I think the best fights, in my opinion, are like, okay, look, focusing on the Cobras first, I would say the best fights I had were definitely with the End, the Fury, and the boss. Those were definitely the best ones. I'm not doing, the Sorrow? Yeah, I believe yeah, that's what I think his name was. The Sorrow. I don't count that as a boss fight. I count that as a weird kind of, like, gimmick that is also very interesting at the same time. Like, it's one of the best things of Metal Gear Solid, in my opinion. Metal Gear Solid 3, I mean. But, yeah, those three fights were definitely my best favorite. Like, the End was... It was just a non-stop sniper battle. It could go on for ages. You could be playing the game forever. And even then, there's multiple ways to, like, cheese it and all that stuff. There's ways to, like, get around the system. And it's quite funny. The Fury was interesting because it was literally an astronaut with a flamethrower. How much more zany could you get with that kind of concept and design? And yeah, he was a little cheap from time to time, but he was a fun boss. He absolutely was. And then there was also the boss herself, which, I'm sorry, I don't know my CQC that well. I don't practice it enough, but she was a formidable foe nonetheless. She was, like, one of my favorite. Like, for a final boss, she was really, really challenging. Truthfully was. But again, it's just like all the other bosses, like, the Pain was definitely the most annoying by far. The Fear, I would say, would almost be one of my favorites, but again, he has some cheap stuff. The Fear has some cheap stuff. And, Ocelot's fight is actually quite fun. It's just, you gotta get good. You gotta get good at just sniping him out. And also, Colonel Volgan, I didn't exactly like the fight that much, but I thought it was interesting. There's ways that you, like, get around him and all that. And then also the fight with the, what was it called? The Airbuster or something like that? Hold on, what is it called? Hold on, what was that called? It wasn't called Metal Gear. Let me see here. What was it called? It was basically a tank with legs. No, it was a tank with a rocket on it. What was it called? What the hell was it called, honestly, though? I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But anyway, just... That fight also, I guess, basically, with the non-Metal Gear, I guess, like, a prototype for it, was quite interesting. It was quite interesting, really. And yeah, just... Bosses aside, what do I think about the game in general? It is what it is set out to be. Possibly one of the best games on the PlayStation 2, and one of my favorites, one of my absolute all-time favorites. Both on PS2, and even, like, all-time. Granted, this is the game I have probably had the least amount of time with out of these 4 games. Only because it's like, this game, much like Resident Evil 4 and even Metal Gear Solid 2, this game takes forever. This game is like that mixture of the 2 games. You could be playing this game endlessly. You could be dying a lot, you could be failing a lot, you could be caught a lot, and you could be stuck on bosses a lot. And also, there's so many ways you could just interact with this game. There's so many ways you could just get in with it in this game. You could be a sneaky chuckle bastard, or you could just go full-on Rambo and possibly die a lot. But even then, this game goes the extra mile because now that they included a hunger state, like a hunger gauge, like you gotta keep that up. Rations are not gonna help you forever. You gotta, like, hunt, you gotta cook stuff. You gotta, like, take food off of enemies. It's like, it's an actual state of survival. And I don't play that many survival games. I really don't. But this game is an exception. Because it really makes you, like, especially in like the nighttime sections where you have to look for food, it can be hard sometimes. It really can be. And when you're also staying out of sight. And that's how I feel. Just survival in this game is absolutely prior. It's like almost a top priority outside of surviving. And even then, you have a bunch of other stuff like, I don't know, what else do you have? Oh yeah, you gotta also like heal your wounds, like fix your bones, and you need medical supplies for that. There's so many, like, you gotta keep a priority on this stuff. It almost feels like an RPG. It almost feels like an RPG. You gotta keep up on a lot of, like, different stuff. You gotta keep up on your stamina, you gotta keep stuff on your body, you gotta keep stuff on your HP. There's so much. There's so much to keep in priority with, and that just makes the game that much better. And I guess talking about guns as well, the guns in this game, I like the concept that, you know, weapons will deteriorate after so many uses. Like, even as simple as, like, you know, a normal, like, knockout pistol, that can be deteriorated. That can break on you at certain scenarios. It really can. And you're just like, oh shit, I need this. So, you either find yourself, I don't even know if you can get replicas of different guns. I don't even know you can. Like, I know that if you don't get a certain weapon at a certain point in the game, you could get it at a later point. But what if, like, I don't know. Somebody would have to probably, like, explain it to me. Like, if you could get, like, another knockout pistol. But I don't know. I don't know about that stuff exactly because I haven't played the game in a while. But again, it's just that concept. You just have to keep up with your different weapons, and you have to make sure they don't all break on you. And there are, I do believe, like, weapon repair kits as well. I believe there are. But again, those come fairly so fair and in between. And you just gotta keep up. You just gotta really, really keep up with it. Same goes with ammo as well. Ammo, I feel like this time around, is much more scarce. Ammo, like, you gotta, like, shake enemies of it. You gotta go into, like, warehouses, and even then, warehouses probably could have jack shit. So, there's a real sense, like, you are surviving off of so little. But at late game, you better hope you have enough. You better hope you have enough for, like, the last few fights and the last few sections, so you have to, like, pass through a bunch of enemies.